Hi everyone, welcome to episode number 15 of the Bill podcast, and today we'll be looking at GitHub. GitHub is a website to go for whenever we need to find an open source project or even collaborate and contribute to it. So let's go through some of the cool features of GitHub. Now before I go through GitHub, I'd like to show you that GitHub, the open source projects are mostly, or in fact all of them, are hosted with Git versioning control system, and that is why it is called a GitHub. So I highly recommend that you check out this version control system if you want to use GitHub to collaborate and contribute. But other than that, you can also use GitHub to explore projects. So let's go through some of the features that GitHub has. Now if we go through this github.com/explore, this is where we'll be able to go through a lot of open source projects. For example, you have some featured repositories, which are projects, or some trending ones. If you go under repositories, this will also show you some of the interesting ones, and for example, Rails or MooTools, Git itself, and there are so many others that are hosted on GitHub. If you go under popular forked meaning how many people have created a copy of it so that they can themselves contribute, we can see that Rails, HTML5 boilerplate, Bootstrap, Homeview, and so many others are at the top list. And there's also an interesting chart right here that shows the history or the activities in this repository. Now, another interesting thing is to look at the languages. So out of all the repositories, which are the languages that are being used to contribute to this GitHub? And of course, there's timeline, which is the public activity by various GitHub account holders. And also in search, this is where we can come and find our repository that we want to search for. So even if you did not open a GitHub account, you can use these and get started with them. So let me just go through one jQuery, which is a JavaScript framework, and let's go through what we can see through them. So once again, even if you don't have a GitHub account, I would highly recommend you to go and search for it and look for an open source project of your choice. So we'll go through jQuery. Now typically the project will have these files and folder structures, and below here you will see a very nicely done up readme.md, which is written in Markdown for us to give us a little brief about what the project is about, or even how to use it and install it. This is usually the first document that we should be reading about any open source project. The next thing that I want to show you is the network tab. The network tab is pretty interesting in that it shows the Git branches, and you also have pull request. This means that contributors who wants to contribute some code to jQuery can submit a pull request. So currently, as you can see in jQuery, there are 21 pull requests, and of course the authors of this repository will go through them one by one and see whether they want to get these changes merged. And lastly, there is also graphs, which is also pretty interesting. It will kind of show you a lot about the activities. For example, you can see the contributors here. Let's click the contributors. Here you can see the various contributors and even the timeline when they contributed and how much code they contributed. The next one is commits. These are really great graphs to look at if you're looking at a particular project's activities and you want to track progress among your team members as well. There's also code frequency, so how many are being added and how many are being deleted, how many total lines. This is a very cool statistics on our project. Also there is impact. Let's see what an impact is. Right, so this is an impact which goes week by week, and if we come below, impact represents lines added, deleted for all non-merged commits. Pretty interesting. And lastly, there is also punch card, which kind of tells you around what time the developers were doing it. Pretty cool, I find this. Right. So using GitHub, you can easily go through these open source projects, and seriously there are tons of them. And one best way to learn programming for me myself is to read through what they are writing. For example, if you go to the source file and read a JavaScript file, you can learn so much about how many good developers out there are coding and learn from them. So go to GitHub, even if you do not know Git versioning system, even if you do not know GitHub itself. So I would highly recommend you to search and go for it. Now there is this button I always recommend to people who are not using GitHub by itself, is this zip button. So if you click this zip button, what they will do is download this entire source code as of today into your download directory. Or if you press this download button right here at the top right hand corner, you can also have various options, but usually I will go to the main page and then press this zip button. So let me just press it and show it to you. So now it will come and download inside my desktop, and it is already downloaded. And if you kind of unzip it and see here, it will give you the entire jQuery, the development files that are being used by the developers, the core team members, to develop this project. So definitely go to GitHub, even if you don't own an account, even if you don't know Git version and control system yet, go ahead and check out these projects. Now next, what I'll be doing is I'll try to create a GitHub account and do some simple collaboration with my current account here and the new account. So let's get started and see how that works. So I'm going to open the page in github.com, and you can see here plans, pricing, and sign up. Let's go there. And I'm just going to choose the free one. So unlimited repositories, unlimited public collaborators. This should really work for most of the beginners. Right, and I'm going to create an account. And this is what my account looks like. It is, of course, very empty. And the very first thing I'll be doing is to create a project. Now before we create a project, we have to come to our machine locally. Let's say we are in our desktop, and I'm going to just create a folder. And for this project, I'm going to create a very simple markdown file and call it the HTTP methods. So this is where I'm going to be creating some HTTP methods. So let me go on to my Mo app, which is a markdown file app, and let me just save it. Go to desktop, and I'm going to save it under HTTP methods, and I'm going to save it as HTTP methods. Right, so let me just do a very simple one. Right, so I have a very simple markdown file. So next, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come to my command line. Let me go to my command line, and on my desktop, let me just get into my folder. And over here, I have to initialize this as a Git repository. So I'm going to do git init. All right, so git add. I'm just going to add everything. Git commit initial commit. Alright, so I have now a project folder, and I have a Git initialized in it to track the versions of my project. So that's all we need to do. So we have a project in our local machine, and now what we'll be doing is clicking this button right here. GitHub has made it very easy to create a new repository. So let me do that. Right, so let me create a little name here, repository name, describing HTTP methods, public, initialize this repository with a readme. Now it is very important that we have a readme.md file, a markdown file, which we saw in jQuery as well. So I haven't done that, so why don't I go ahead and create that as well. So I'm gonna just create a readme file. Right, so let me just save it, and I'm gonna save it as readme. Okay, so obviously if I come to my terminal, if I do a git status, I will notice that I have an untracked file. So let me just add it first, and added a readme file. And when I do a git status here, nothing is committed. So we are all ready for this project, so we don't have to initialize it because we have already done it. So create a repository. Right, now over here there are very good instructions here. So we have already done this, so I'm just gonna go ahead and do this line: Git remote add origin. So in a way you're saying that, hey, add a remote repository to this project which is being currently in the local machine. So I'm just gonna do that. Okay, looks good to me. And then all I'm gonna do is git push origin master. Right, and they are gonna ask me for my username. Right, so over here branch is set up to track remote branch. Now one command I want to show you is git remote. So when we press that, it will tell us, okay, there is an origin which resides remotely. Now when I come back here and I refresh the page, all our both the files that we have there, our readme file and the HTTP methods, both our markdown file are residing here. Now if we click one of the file, you will even be able to see the file. Now over here there are also some neat functions here. For example, you can edit it right away. You can see the raw method. So for example, if you click the raw file, you'll be able to see what exactly are the file contents. This is sometimes very useful if you want to copy something. There's also the history and so on and so forth. Let's also look at some of the cool stuff here. So I'm going to go through admin here. Admin has collaborators, deploy, service hooks, and let me just go back and go to graphs. Graphs are very similar to what we saw in the jQuery as well. Of course, the jQuery history had a lot more activities. This is a very new project. And of course, there are issues which other people can submit, and there are pull requests which other people also can submit as a contribution to the code. Now after this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back to my local version here, and I'm going to just add a few more lines. All right, so let me just add input as one more HTTP. And when I come here, git status, obviously there are some changes, so I'm going to do git add, git commit, added put as another method. Right, so over here it will nicely now tell you that your branch is ahead in one commit. So now what I'm going to do is just git push origin, and when we do that, it will once again ask for the username and the password, and what it will do is get our code right up to GitHub once again. So let's do that. Right, so it has pushed it. And over here it will very nicely tell you that, hey, this the file that you were changing were changed just a minute ago, while the rest were 4 minutes ago. And if you check the commits tab over here, it will tell you very nicely what are the exact commit histories: 6 minutes ago, 4 minutes ago, 1 minute ago. This is really so useful. Next, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna try to visit this project via my another account. So let's say our friend is trying to visit this page, and when I come here, let's say after reviewing the code, I want to submit an issue here. So let me just go ahead here. The issues are really good for tracking bugs, duplicates, questions, or even some enhancements that you want to do. So let me just go ahead and submit an issue. So I'm going to click here, new issue. So this is obviously not my repository. Once again, I'm visiting another person's repository. So now I'm going to come back to my repository, and when I refresh, I'm going to see that there is an issue right here. All right, so there is a number 1 here, and let me just come back here. And it says, all right, so let me just view it, and it also gives you very neatly the issue number. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to search for this one sentence HTTP definition, and I'm going to try to include it to close this issue. So let me just do that. So I'm going to go back and maybe go to Wikipedia, and let me just copy the first line. I'm going to copy the definition here, save it, and Of course, if I do git status, it is like that, git add. Now, very interestingly, this is where I really like GitHub as well. So if you do git commit, of course you say added one sentence on the definition. And over here, if you add like something like fixed hatch 1, let's see what happens. So basically you're saying that the issue number we saw just now over here, the issue number is number 1. So basically we're saying that, hey, I fixed this. So I'm just gonna add this, and of course git push origin. And when I come back to my page and I refresh it, let's see what happens. I see that there are 0 issues closed. So if I look, 0 issues open, and when I look at the closed issue, we see that over here it is automatically closed. And when I come here and I see that I have closed this with this commit, isn't that very neat? Because in our local development, when I wrote the commit message that added one sentence, fixed number 1, it automatically actually closed this issue. I find this pretty neat. Alright, so next what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go to my other account. So remember, this is a build account, and let me go to the other account. And let's say this time I want to contribute it myself. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna fork it first. So let me just click fork. And it seems that I have exact copy of the repository right now. So now I can do the same thing, you know. I can actually clone this repository onto my desktop. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this URL, clone. I'm going to copy and paste the URL, and then I'm going to write the folder name. So maybe HTTP copy. And after it copies, we will see that now on my desktop I will have another one called HTTP copy, and it has exactly the copy that I had from the main repository. So remember, this is the copy, and of course is the original one. Alright, so let's say now you want to implement a new feature and contribute it back to the main repository. Now the very first thing we will do is, of course, create a new branch. So git, alright, over here now what I'll do is I'll go back to the project and add a feature, right? So let's say I add here options. Okay, and of course if I come back to my terminal and I do a git status, it is changed. So let me do a git add, git commit, added feature. And now I can push back to my repository. To do that, I'll do git push instead of origin. So now I want to push this branch, so I will add in the branch name, feature, add feature. And now if I go back to my repository on the website, let me go back to the main page. It will tell me that I just pushed in a new branch a minute ago, add feature over here, like it says. So if I go here, add feature, you can see that I added a new feature here. Okay, so now what I'll do is I'll make sure first that I am in the current branch that I want to contribute the code. That's the very first thing I'll do. I'll push down this drop down list, make sure I'm in the current branch. And let's say I want to contribute this back to the original author, so I'll request a pull. So I'll do a pull request. So let me do that. And send pull request. So I'm doing this as a contributor. So I created a new branch, and then I pull request to the original owner of the repository. So after I do that, let me go back to the original repository. And I will just come back here. And now I'll see that, hey, I have a pull request 1. So let me just go back there and see what it's all about. Right, so I have added method definitions. Let's go to issues. Issues is also having 1. Okay, so now what I'll do is I'll just open this. And I can even go and view the commits if I want to. So let's say everything is fine, all we need to do is go ahead and click this merge pull request. So add feature, I am completely fine with this, so confirm merge. Alright, so now we will see that both my pull request and issues is 0. So this is basically what I wanted to talk about GitHub. And finally, for the build link of the episode, it is this podcast called The Web Ahead. The Web Ahead by 5x5 Podcast Network. It is indeed one of my favorite podcasts that I listen to while commuting through my iTunes, and I highly recommend you to listen to them, although they are about an hour and above. So Jen Simmons kind of hosts it, and I highly recommend you to check out this podcast and have a great commute. Right, and that's it for this episode. For all other episodes of Build Podcasts, visit build-podcast.com. And now, since you also know how to use the GitHub, you can also contribute to the course materials here, the show notes, as well as subscribe to iTunes, YouTube, Vimeo, or even via RSS. Right, so that's it for this episode. I will see you next episode. Goodbye.